What is up, YouTube? It is your boy ThunderBuddy29 here, back today with another video. And today we are going to do something that I have not done in a very long time. And today we're going to do an updated video of ranking every Fortnite season from worst to best, because it's been at least a year since I did one of these last time. The last time I did a tier maker video in general was for all the Chapter 3 seasons, but as we're now in the middle of Chapter 4, just a couple weeks away from going into Chapter 4 Season 3, I kind of just wanted to do an updated tier maker, ranking every Fortnite season from worst to best. Now, before I begin, I just want to say I apologize for the lack of normal videos lately. I'm trying my best, as of right now, to try to get whatever I can out there. I'm just struggling with ideas, and I need your guys' help with that. So if anyone has any ideas of like what you want to see or what type of videos you want to see, just let me know in the comments. And second of all, I hope you enjoy the videos that you see here on the channel. And if you do enjoy this video, make sure you smash that like button down below, subscribe, share this with your friends, and hit that bell, and yes. But anyways, without further ado, let's get right into this tier maker. So I kind of already have many of these seasons already listed, just to try to keep this video as short and sweet as possible. Even though it's probably going to be long either way. But anyways, grab your popcorn, grab your Doritos or whatever, and let's start the video. So let's begin with Chapter 1, Season 7. Now, honestly, I think my opinion is still pretty much the same. I think one of the biggest consequences to this season, even though in general it was a very fun season, it was the season that Creative came out. And this honestly kind of ruined Fortnite. It kind of caused it to downfall a little bit, but I still had fun overall. I love the theme, I love the concept, and I love everything that came with the season, but for that alone, I think it deserves to be C. Now, going on to Chapter 1, Season 8, I once again think that is a C tier season. Even though I really liked the Battle Pass, I really liked the first half of the season. Honestly, I think I'm going to put it in the back of the B tier, borderline C. Like, I had a lot of fun this season. I actually enjoyed the Battle Pass, and most notably, I enjoyed the buried treasure chests, the storyline, and of course, Air Royale. That was my favorite LTM that ever came into the game. But I think where it really began to fall apart, because this could have been an A tier season, was when they took the pump out in the middle of the season and replaced it with a combat shotgun, which was honestly kind of overpowered and kind of annoying because it was a spammy shotgun. But I don't want to just make that cause the season to go all the way down to C or D. I still had fun, and I definitely want the positives to still shine through. Now, going on to Chapter 1, Season 9, I've been a little too hard with this season. Like, I always put it in the F tier, but honestly, I think I'm going to put it in the back of the D tier, borderline F. Now, the reason why that is, well, of course, the season had so much potential. Like, I loved the theme, I loved the concept, I loved the storyline, and of course, half of the items. But where they really went wrong was, for number one, lack of content, and number two, you had four spam shotguns as far as I can remember. Of course, you had the tac, you had the combat, and then you had the drum shotgun. I forgot what the other one was. But eventually they brought the pump back, but even then it was pretty useless, especially when it was going against the combat shotgun. But either way, and of course, the one thing that I really loved the most, the only thing that kept me playing the game despite its beginning to decline in popularity, the only thing that kept me playing was the limited time modes. And I'll tell you what, it had a great summer event, and it also had a great limited time mode called Horde Rush. I really loved that. So that's why I moved it up to D instead of keeping it at F. But I still think it's borderline F. It had a lot of potential, but they just blew it. Now, going on to Season X, I think that's going to be F tier, borderline D. Now, the reason why that is, of course, we all know why. The brutes, the mechs, whatever you want to call them, they were fucking annoying. But I was very grateful that they, like, took them out after, like, the first 3 weeks. But I think after that, it just got really boring. I think the one thing that really happened after Season 7 that caused a lot of these seasons to, like, become unenjoyable, while the game was still good, it was a fucking massive sweat show, because that was the consequence for Creative coming out. That was one of the biggest consequences, was how much of a sweat show both these seasons were. But they were still good seasons, especially storyline-wise, they were great. Now, moving on to Chapter 2, Season 1. My opinion on that still stays the same. I mean, it was a great season, don't get me wrong. It had a good battle pass. It had a great map. It had a great loot pool. The one thing that it just went wrong was the lack of content. I mean, keeping the season for almost half a year. The season lasted 2 seasons long. It had a lot of potential, but it just blew it. It should have been a lot shorter than it was. So that's why alone I think it deserves to be C. If it would have been shorter, I would have definitely put it B. Now, Chapter 2, Season 2, I already put it in A. You pretty much know why. Now, Season 3, that's also once again going to be a C tier, borderline D. And I'm going to be straight up honest, I didn't play it for half the season, so I'm not just going to immediately put it in F or put it in S. I mean, I still think it was a decent season, but it got pretty boring after a while. Like, after, at least a couple weeks. But I will say it did have a good collab, which was Shark Week from Discovery Channel. I thought that was a good collab. But another thing I didn't like about it, which, of course, like I said, the BLM fiasco that happened during the season, which caused delays for the season and caused delays for the Cars update. I like the Cars update, but they should not have delayed it over some political event, which honestly was stupid. So I think for that alone, I think it deserves to be in the back of the C tier. I used to put it in D, but I'm going to move it up to C. Now, this season, Chapter 2, Season 4. Now, I think I've been a little too hard on this season, but I think I rightfully have a reason to be hard on the season. Well, I mean, the Marvel concept, of course, it was all just a cash grab, like I said a million times. I mean, the mythics could have been fine if they weren't as overpowered. I mean, I like the fact that there was limited number of mythics, but in general, I thought they were too overpowered. Especially if you get to the very end of the game, you do really good, then someone with a mythic can just one-shot you and blow you away. Now, the Halloween event for the season was absolutely ass, because like I said, when you die, you just respawn with Wolverine claws, which that was honestly fucking stupid. I don't even honestly know why a Halloween event would be just for that. I even think this Halloween event was worse than Chapter 2 Season 1's. Which honestly, that's kind of embarrassing. But the season-wise, I mean, for storyline-wise, at least they made it work. The finale event for the season was actually good. I mean, I was a little too hard on this season, but I'm actually going to move it to the top of the F tier. Rightfully so. Now, Chapter 2, Season 5. This is kind of tricky. I don't know. I think I'm going to put it in C tier. I mean, I will say, the loot pool, now, I'm actually going to move it up. I'm actually going to move it to, the middle of the C tier. I thought the loot pool was good. The map changes were good. The battle pass was eh. I was kind of mixed about that. I mean, the one thing I really didn't like was how people were camping in the sand all the time, and of course, the massive crossover spams, which happened so many times during this season. But overall, I still think the season was averagely decent for what it was. And it was probably the most decent season that we had for a while. Now, Chapter 2, Season 6, you know where that's going. Fuck you, F tier. I don't need to explain. If you want to hear my full explanation of why, watch my previous video. Now, Season 7. I've been a little too harsh on the season. I always put it in D tier, but I think I'm going to move it up to C tier. Actually, no. I'm actually going to move it at least to here. I mean, I really hated the collab spams, but once again, I really liked the storyline. And that's the one factor alone that you cannot forget to include, is the storyline. The storyline was actually decent. But there's one thing that I really hated about it. One, they were getting political in the middle of it with the Rainbow Royale stuff. And number two, the UFOs. The UFOs could have actually been good, but the thing is, people were just camping in them. They were camping in them, riding around in them, spamming with them. They were absolutely fucking annoying. And if they get shot down, they could just be recharged. Now don't get me wrong. The loot pool was actually pretty decent. I like the storyline once again, which is why I think it deserves to be C tier. Now season 8 of chapter 2, I'm actually going to put this in D tier. I mean, there was only one good thing about this season. Well, you could say two. Well, the one good thing there was you had a good Halloween event. They brought back Horde Rush for the first time since chapter 1, and of course, the chapter 2 finale event. This finale event was definitely a lot better than what we got in the chapter 3 finale, but I'll get to that later. I mean, those were the only two good things about this season. But the Battle Pass was shit. There was hardly any content during this season. Pretty much most of my opinions are still the same, except I moved it to D tier instead of keeping it in C. It did have some goods, but it was mostly bads in the outcome. And of course, also the collapse spams. Now we got Chapter 3, Season 1. I always put it in F tier, but I'm actually going to move it up to D. Like, I thought the launch for this chapter was actually pretty good. It was the great start to a new chapter. Like, you had a great map. You had somewhat of a decent loot pool. Well, for a while, of course. And you had Tilted Towers return for the first time since... You could technically say Chapter 2, Season 5, because they added, like, a portion of it back, but it wasn't called Tilted Towers. But it was during its 4-year... I think it was, like, its 3 or 4 year anniversary, whatever it was. They brought back Tilted Towers. I like that. But where it really went wrong, you had the Spider-Man Mythics, which, of course, they could have actually been good Mythics if there weren't, like, 60 of them. If there were, like, 8 of them, like, the same number, like you had with the Marvel Mythics in Chapter 2, Season 4. If you had the same number of those for the Spider-Man web shooters, it could have been fine. In another part where they went wrong, once again, lack of content. There was hardly anything during the season, which is why it got boring after a month. And third of all, you had the MK7 Stinger SMG spam meta, which honestly, that was pretty fucking annoying as well. But overall, I liked the map, I liked the loot pool, but it was just pretty boring overall because of the lack of content and spam metas that took place during the season. Now, season 2 of Chapter 3. I'm honestly going to move that up to B tier. I didn't like it at first because one of the biggest things I didn't like was there were hardly any map changes, but there were so many changes in this game I definitely cannot deny. You had a guided missile that can lock onto a vehicle target, you had tanks, and of course you had the no building game mode, which honestly, it was a pretty nice feature, even though I didn't like it being 100% no build, because I would like to switch back to builds from time to time again. But of course, I still play no builds most of the time. Now as of today, currently. Because I like to take a break from the sweats. But even then, there's still sweats and no builds as well. But of course, there were so many change-ups in this season that cannot be ignored, which is why I actually had more fun during this season than I did in a very long time. I actually thought it was a very decent season, probably the best that we've had since Chapter 2 sometime. Like, this was the most fun I've had with this game for a long time. Now, moving on to Chapter 3, Season 3. Sadly, I can't say the same thing about that, because once again, I'm putting that in F tier. The season was absolutely fucking awful. It had a good start, don't get me wrong. It had a great start. But here is the thing where they really went wrong. And where they went wrong, once again, lack of content. And when they gave us new content, they basically copy and pasted the same thing that they did before, which they basically copied the summer event from 2019 during their summer event. At first, I thought it was good, but then when I looked back on it and thought of that, I was like, okay, yeah, this is pretty fucking lazy. I mean, the fact that you had hardly any content during this season, and one thing I forgot to include of Chapter 3 Season 2 I didn't like is they brought back the OG guns, but they completely disgraced them by weakening them, nerfing the hell out of them, like what they did with the Heavy Sniper. The Heavy Sniper during the season was pretty much the same, shitty as always. The shotguns were absolutely ass, which you say the same thing about this season as well. The only real good update that we got during Chapter 3 Season 3 was when the Prime Shotgun came in. And of course, the update in the final week when you had the Suppressed SMG and the Suppressed Scar return. But other than that, it doesn't make up for how lazy most of the season was, especially during the summertime. Because I could just tell you this right off the bat. I have never seen the Fortnite community this burnt out in a very long time. This was the first time I really saw the community burnt out, and this is the season where many of the players left. Now, moving on to Chapter 3, Season 4. Now, from this point on, Fortnite literally became the definition of mid. But I think for this season, I'm going to put it in the back of the C tier, borderline D. I mean, first, this season was mixed. But I will say, I did like the map changes. The reason, but the thing is with the map, there were hardly any changes to the map. The only thing that they updated with the map is add a bunch of Chrome shit all over the map, and that was pretty much it. That's all they did with the map. Well, the Chrome stuff was okay. I did like the loot pool and some of the OG items that they brought back. But here's the thing where they also went wrong again. Lack of content. In the Halloween event, once again, was a recycled, copy and pasted version of the event from last year, back in Chapter 2 of Season 8. I mean, overall, I did like the loot pool. I'm not going to ignore that. The storyline was eh. Now, there's a thing I definitely cannot forget to include. The Chapter 3 finale was absolutely dog shit. It was one of the worst events Fortnite had ever had, and it's honestly just a damn shame that it became one of the worst events in Fortnite history, because all you're doing for 45 minutes is wandering around through floating islands, and that was it for 45 minutes. Now, for that reason alone, if they didn't have that, I'd be putting it at the top of the C tier, borderline B, but because of that alone, and of course the Halloween event, I think it deserves C. I mean, the season wasn't bad, but it wasn't all that good either. Now, moving on to Chapter 4, Season 1. Now, I'm going to put this in the C tier, because once again, this is the definition of mid. And technically, I could say the same thing about Chapter 4, Season 2, which I'll get to in a second. This was definitely great for a new chapter. I really liked how they started off the chapter. You had some OG weapons return. You had the Scar return for the first time since Chapter 2, which has been demanded by the player base for so long. The Battle Pass was actually decent. Even though you had a crossover in it, you had two of them actually. But here's the one thing I really liked about it. It was the first one since Chapter 2 that did not make a collab skin tier 100. I actually pretty much liked that. I liked the map, I liked the loophole, even though I said the shotguns were bad, but I was actually pretty glad that they actually improved. And of course, they actually fixed the snipers as well. I was happy to see those fixed. But the one thing that they went wrong was, once again, hardly any content. And when they did add in content, and then like the final weeks of the season, they took away the heavy sniper, even though they brought it back a couple weeks later in Chapter 4, Season 2, which honestly was a pretty pointless update, and they got rid of the slurp juice. Like, I thought that was an absolute stupid update. But other than that, this is once again the definition of mid. Just like Chapter 4, Season 2, which in fact, I'm actually going to move that to the middle. I'm actually going to move it up to almost the top of the B tier, because this is the most fun I've had with this game in a very long time. In fact, I've live streamed this game even more than I did in Chapter 4, Season 1, more than any other season since I started making Fortnite content. I mean, here's where the season was great. You had the loot pool, that was great. You had a great loot pool, sorry, my wording's bad. The map, of course, the map changes were actually phenomenal. Unlike Chapter 3 Season 2, where they just added in a fortress and a couple trees, they actually changed an entire section of the map to make it like futuristic Japanese style. I actually really liked that. I liked the idea of it. And of course, you had Mega City, which is like the bigger futuristic version of Tilted Towers, even though most of it's pretty much empty. I still enjoy many of these new locations. But the one thing that I just didn't like about it was the massive third partying that took place this season. I think the third partying this season was a lot worse. It was a lot worse than any other season I had played. Even though I'm probably going to say that in the next season, which of course happens almost every time. And one of the biggest things that you definitely cannot forget to include, there was once a really big change up. Like several seasons before this one, there were speculations of Creative 2.0. And of course, this was the season where it finally came out. And Fortnite actually did make a pretty big comeback. They made a pretty big comeback by actually, their player count actually went up for the first time in a year and a half. They actually gained more players than lost because they actually kept their promise and made a huge giant change to the game. And honestly, Creative 2.0 is actually decent. The graphics itself is actually insane. But honestly, in conclusion, the season was actually pretty fun. I don't want to say anything more because I don't want to spoil my final review video, which is going to come out pretty soon as well. So honestly, this is my overall tier maker video. This is my updated tier maker video from as of May of 26th of 2023. What do you guys think of this list? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you guys enjoyed or agree with this video, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share this with your friends, and hit that bell for notifications so you'll never miss another video. And as always, follow me on Twitter if you want to. I love you all to death. I appreciate all this massive love and support you've been giving me, as we are now closing in on 5,840 subscribers, almost 160 subscribers away from 6K. And my birthday's in 3 days from now. But anyways, I love you all to death. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. And until next time, I'll see you all in the next video. And this is ThunderBuddy29. Sign off.